Welcome everyone to Sustainability is Bullshit. We are so excited to have you here today for this 90-minute exploration of a business model that goes beyond making ends meet. Our host today is CanWCC member Helen Tremethick, and will lead us through an interactive workshop designed to get you clear on the gaps in your business, consider ways to fill them, and manage all the things that you juggle. So this is an interactive workshop. It's designed to motivate, inspire, and most importantly, getting you to apply real changes to your life and business immediately. My name is Jenna Clockley, for those of you that don't know me, and I'm the Director of Membership and Community here at the Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce, or CanWCC, as we call it for short. My pronouns are she, her, and I welcome you to this event today from the unceded and unsurrendered lands of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Ojai Cree, the Dakota, and the Dene peoples, and home to the Métis Nation covered in Treaty 1, colonially known as Winnipeg, Manitoba. And the Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce operates out of the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in what is colonially known as Toronto, Ontario. And if you're looking for the lands and the treaties that you are on, you can visit native-land.ca for a beautiful picture of the treaties and the original keepers of what is known as Canada today. The Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce is the first and only Chamber of Commerce for diverse women identified entrepreneurs and non-binary business owners in Canada. And as a Chamber of Commerce, we represent your needs with the government, and our position and title as a chamber give us access to the people who impact change. We exist to improve the quality of life for the 1 million or the over 1 million entrepreneurial Canadian women through advocacy with policymakers, and we aim to build a healthier and more inclusive Canadian economy. We are here to amplify the stories and the voices of diverse women and non-binary entrepreneurs and to fight for their economic equity. And now, let me introduce CanWCC member and regenerative business designer and coach, Helen. Helen is a regenerative business designer and holistic business coach for entrepreneurs who are ready to show up more fully and authentically in their businesses. Since 2011, Helen has worked with entrepreneurs to build successful businesses that combine contemporary strategy, somatic experiencing, values-based service models, time for life, and a hefty dose of what makes them unique. Helen lives on a permaculture farm in the Ontario countryside, which means if you ever hop on a call with her, you may hear some roosters. So without further ado, let's welcome Helen. Thank you, Helen.
Thanks, Jenna. Thanks so much for having me here. I appreciate it so much. My name is Helen. My pronouns are she and they, and I will tell you more about myself in a quick moment. First, I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up, whether that was because you were intrigued by the description or you love the title and you love brass. I love seeing your introductions in the chat, so please keep that up. And as Jenna said, this is an interactive workshop, so you will get out of it what you put in. Not to be cliche, but you're entrepreneurs, you know how it goes. So if you do the exercises, no doubt you will come up with some ahas. At least I hope so, and I hope that you will share them with us. I will be flicking back and forth between my screens a little bit, just so that I can advance the presentation and then come back to you. Thank you for mentioning the traditional territories that you and CanWCC are on, Jenna. I live on the traditional territories of the Chononton people, who were also called the Attawandaron, although I have word that was not a particularly nice name. And so the Chononton people, the treaty is not with them, but I do live on Treaty 21 territory, otherwise colloquially known as Southwestern Ontario. If you're looking at the map of Canada, that little foot of Ontario that sneaks into the States and is surrounded by Great Lakes, I live right in the middle there. It is the tropics here right now. Everything is blooming. Right before I came into this room, I was covered in earth because I went out to pick asparagus. And if that is not a beautiful day, I don't know what is. So today what we will do is we'll cover a number of things. The first is what the big deal is about sustainability in the first place. The second is why people are talking about sustainable businesses and why we don't want it. I know that's a spoiler alert, but the title was a spoiler alert just to begin with. And then the third is what the heck your options are without like doing capitalism. And by that, I mean exploiting people unnecessarily. I don't think exploiting is ever necessary, or ditching the whole thing to binge watch crappy reality TV. I have a client where she books in couch burrito time as part of her self-care. I may come back to couch burrito time. I think it's a beautiful thing. However, there are ways around that that are still forwarding your business while you also get some couch burrito time. Okay. So again, thank you for plopping your names and an introduction into the chat. I'm going to go through it in a moment just to say hi to all of you. But first, I will properly introduce myself. This is more or less an iteration of what Jenna said, but for those who are just joining us, who the actual F is me, Helen Tremethick. I'm a regenerative business designer, embodied business coach. I sometimes use the word holistic. I sometimes use the word embodied. I sometimes use the word somatic. And I tend to play with it because it's, firstly, I'm not really stuck to the title to begin with, but also because different words land different ways. And as somebody who chooses to communicate really fluidly, I think that it's important that we acknowledge that it doesn't have to be a really stiff and rigid title. So yes, holistic, yes, embodied. I'm currently learning to become a somatic experiencing practitioner. So I'm fully immersed in that programming, and I bring a lot of that training to the work that I do, which is a very often very in your brain model of business back into our bodies. And I work with entrepreneurs who are ready to show up more authentically. I'm going to speak about that word authentic a little bit later, but truly, definitively more authentically in their lives and in their businesses. And because I've been at this in one iteration or another since 2011, that makes me officially internet old. So that means I've seen it all. I've seen what works. I've seen what doesn't. I've seen what will die a fiery death at the hands of a raging online audience. And actually, I've seen it come back all around again as something new or retro or classic. The work I do, though, is always immersive. It is always introspective, and it is always personalized. And the reason for this is that we can have formulas and strategies that work, but if it's not customized, it may not work for you. And the idea of one template fits all is the same as one size fits all. It's a load of patriarchal nonsense that I am not here for. So, hi, I love all of these hi in the chat. Okay, so where this begins, it begins here. I hate follow the leader. I hate it so much. And so much of our industry is do this and then earn 8 figures sitting from your toilet seat. It'll be easy, no problem. Just do this handy formula. Anywho, the whole ride or die thing, that whole no questions asked thing, I'm not that. I'm the one who asks where we're going, if I need to pack a swimsuit, whether I need a passport, whether there will be snacks, because if there are no snacks, I am neither riding, I am not dying. Thank you very much. And this leads me to the idea that no questions asked is problematic. Why would we not ask questions when it comes to our business? Why would we not ask questions when it comes to our lives? Ride or die, no questions asked is very problematic because when you stop asking questions, you stop thinking critically. So there are a lot of formulas, there are a lot of strategies that are out there that say, again, just do this, follow this process, and you will win. You will get what I have. But when you stop asking questions, you stop thinking critically, and you stop finding ways that may work better for you. So where are we now? I'm going to back up a little bit. There are a lot of people making a lot of money with contradictory advice and empty promises teaching us how to be rich. Contradictory advice because what they are selling is not necessarily what they're doing. Empty promises that they aren't necessarily backing up. I am really quite curious, actually, going off script here. I'm curious, plop in the chat, have you participated in a program where you felt coming out of the program or while you're in the program that you haven't met the expectations or the promises of that program itself? I'm just curious. Have you participated in programs where you thought, oh, okay, this person is promising that I will get X, Y, or Z from this program, and then not gotten that? Yeah. Katie says, yes, they didn't meet expectations. And there can be expectations that are relationship expectations. There can be expectations in the ROI, and there can also be expectations in really what you were expecting the program or the program to look like and how it plays out. There are a lot of programs out there where the founder will introduce themselves, and then you're left to some sort of club leader, and you never see the founder ever again. And that is a bit of a bait and switch as well. Yeah. So there's a couple of check marks there as well in agreement. This is really common. And my experience of this is that when they haven't met expectations, we often feel like we're the ones that failed it. Like we're the ones that have said, oh, well, I didn't apply it in exactly the right way, and so it didn't work. And that's my fault because it clearly worked for those people. And this is why it is so problematic, this contradictory advice, these empty promises. On top of that, there's a lot of privilege bypassing. I did it, and so can you. There's a lot of bypassing of societal limitations, that there are people who come from ancestral or generational wealth. There are people who are in different positions. Perhaps they have somebody, a partner at home, who earns enough money to cover the bases. There's a lot that is just not spoken about. And they do this in favor of a pithy slogan, you can too. And thanks to the way that marketing is so heavily curated right now, it's really hard to know who to trust because, you know, as Shauna Ray says, there's like tons of info sessions and there's tons of it out there. It's so easy to be like, oh, they're speaking directly to me. They're selling the dream, and they're selling our dreams of enoughness, of belonging, of success, of readiness. And yes, and this like bait and switch of like selling a different program. Oh, I have stories. I have been around for so long. I have stories, like come and sit at my knee. But another time, as Jenna says, you can DM me in the chats. I am happy. But the TLDR of this is that those who say that they're ethical aren't always ethical. And that is where the allure of sustainable business comes in. Sustainable business positions itself as a counter option to the sleazy, icky, unethical business methods that many of us are repelled by. Many of us are repelled by it because it seems to go against our values. Many of us are repelled by it, but can't necessarily define why. It just doesn't feel that great. And many of us are repelled by it because the marketing is so in your face and that it doesn't feel right for us. So the question is this what you really want? Obviously, you know, the title of this is Sustainability is Bullshit. Obviously, no. No, this is not what we want. And I'll tell you why. But first, we're going to get into a language agreement. Language agreements are so important to me because it is all fine and well that I say all of these words and you're nodding along. But if we don't talk about what I mean by that word and what you mean by that word, then we don't know for certain whether we're on the same page. Shauna Ray, yes, the model depends on a feeling of inadequacy. Exactly. And I am like 100% not here for that at all. If I have done my job right, then you will graduate from my work and move on because you will be feeling strong and successful and ready. Like that is the place that I set my goals for. But when you create a model of a feeling of inadequacy, people become dependent and then they stay your clients for years and years and years. You know, sustainable income, isn't it? So let's talk about sustainability. Definitively, sustainability is the ability to maintain an environment with little to no damage. So little to no damage. This is the definition of sustainability, is this definition that I will be going along with throughout the rest of our time here today. Sustainable business then, as an extrapolation, is the overall approach to a business that often uses a triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit, meaning that they consider these three things in their business decisions. And I'm going to throw another one in here because I think it's really important to just put this right out there, that business growth is neither infinite nor linear. I live on a freaking farm. There is very obvious in our face what growth looks like here. Sometimes growth is deep and underground and we can't see it at all. And if you live somewhere where there is a winter, you know this in your core. Sometimes the growth is really wowy. Like this time of year where I live, all of the trees have this haze of yellow green. Everything is sprouting and blooming. But in order for us to think about growth, we need to consider the fact that sometimes it's more internal, sometimes it's more external, and that growth is not an isolated it is not an isolated thing. True business growth supports all elements of a business ecosystem. So not just people, planet, profit, and certainly not just profit. We'll talk a little bit about a business ecosystem in a minute. I want to check in with you on two levels here. One, is this pacing okay? Do I need to slow down? I tend to go fast because I get excited. We're okay. I got a thumbs up. Two, are we good with that language agreement? Those words feel good. I've got a couple of nods. Yes, good. Thank you. And thanks for popping in the chat as well. That's super helpful also. Okay, so let's go back to sustainable business. There are the goodies and there are the baddies. What sustainable businesses do well? They think about the future, which I think is incredibly important. It's not so short-sighted as make profit now and not worry about it. We see a lot of this in the world, and we are experiencing the results of those decisions a lot these days. I love the fact that sustainable businesses think about the future. It is not just about profit now, profit first. They factor impact into the bottom line. Again, it's not just profit. They also consider what the results of the decisions could be that don't just have to do with revenue or money. And there's a whole cost accounting. So they think about people, they think about the planet, they think about the profit. They consider all of these aspects as they're making decisions, or at least theoretically, right? And where they suck. So this is great. We're like, yes, absolutely. We want a sustainable business. But the problem with that is that it's still very quantifiable over qualifiable. It's still very much put into a graph that says, well, we earned this much over that, or we planted this many trees. And the quantifiable over qualifiable piece does not consider the fact that when they plant 1,000 trees, that they're these tiny little baby trees that are not habitat. for that one that was taken down. So one tree can be habitat to hundreds and hundreds of species. One baby tree cannot. And so you can say that you've planted 1,000 trees, and quantifiably, that is good work, taking care of the planet. But when you take down that one habitat, so again, quantifiable over qualifiable. Similarly, it's an eagle view that often ignores the mouse. I like to talk about eagle mouse a lot because it's important that as business owners, as humans in the world, that we think about both of these things. The eagle thinks about the entire scope of thing. The eagle can see very far away. The eagle can see the mice on the ground as well. The eagle can see the trajectory. The mouse can't. The mouse can see the grasses. The mouse can see the bugs and the seeds and the tiny little pieces. It's integral that we have both, because the mouse gets us there little by little, seed by seed, blade of grass by blade of grass, and the eagle drives the direction. A sustainable business often looks at the entirety, often looks at that eagle view, but doesn't necessarily think about, Sheila in accounting and her kid being sick and her needing to take extra time off because of it. So this eagle view can often ignore the mouse view. And in the sustainable business model, this is something that often gets lost. Yes, Katie, absolutely. The thinking of the future is very much the 7 generations thinking, and thank you for applying credit where credit is due. And the other piece about sustainable businesses is that it's still based on a formulaic capitalist model. I'm just going to go right out there and say I am staunchly anti-capitalist. I am not anti-success. I am not anti-money. But I am anti-exploitation, and the capitalist model thrives on that. And so as a sustainable business, it's necessary to have that capitalist model in play in order for them to have the revenue. But the biggest problem by far that I see with sustainable businesses is that sustainability equals net zero. So do you remember that language agreement where we said little to no damage? Net zero is not enough. Sustainability is taking in the number of breaths that you need to oxygenate your brain. The sustainability is survival. Sustainability is what we need in order to just sustain. And net zero is not enough. And I'm going to go back and just say that that is also a load of patriarchal nonsense, that we should be satisfied with just enough to sustain ourselves. AKA sustainability is bullshit. So there we go. There's the theme. And because this is interactive, we are going to go a little bit deeper than that. Thank goodness, right? So what can you do about it? Whoa. I need to go into an important caveat before I go into what you can do today. And the caveat is this: there is nothing inherently wrong with sustaining yourself. Sustenance is life, it's food, it's water, it's paying your bills, it's the roof over your head. Sustenance, if that is what your goal is, I am 100,000, thanks, Jenna. I am 100,000% hyperbolically there for sustenance. That's not the problem. Sustainability is livelihood. But what I am here for, and I think what you are here for too, is thrivelihood. We don't want just to make ends meet. We also want to know that we can take that day off if our kids are sick, or that we have some years in the future where we may not be able to work as hard as we can now, but we still have food on our tables. And that is also considered, that future care is also considered self-care as far as I'm concerned. There is nothing wrong with sustaining yourself, but it doesn't consider later. and it doesn't consider more. Now, again, by more, I do not mean hoarding billions of dollars of gold and building penis ships that go to space and buying out social media platforms and that sort of thing. I don't mean that. And I want to be very clear. Now it's recorded. What I'm talking about when I'm talking about thriving is the thing that we talk about here is when we have extra, we tend to take care of our families. We tend to donate to the food bank. We tend to give more time because we have it. And sure, maybe we'll get another massage or two, but hey, right? We're not going to just squander it selfishly. So when I speak about thriving, I do so in a way that is really values aligned and aligned to the values I believe that we share here at CanWCC. Sustainability as a whole is a trend in the evolution of business. And I think that there are probably going to be people out there that say, oh, hang on a second, how can sustainability be a trend? Dee, did you actually want to come off? I'm just seeing that Jenna. Okay, I will keep going. Sustainability is a trend in the evolution of business. Remember when I said I am officially internet old? Yeah, well, let me give you a very tiny short history. When I started in 2011, I was running my own business before that, and I was in the small business marketplace before that, but I officially started my business in 2011, officially. And around that time, people were talking a lot about authenticity, being authentic, showing up as you online. And this was beautiful. This was exactly it, because there were ways that people were engaging with others. And frankly, we were still pretty new to the selling to each other game online. So being authentic, being genuine was really something that was setting people apart. You knew that somebody was more true until brand voices. Honestly, I was one of the first people who started talking about brand voice strategy because I think it's really important for us to have something that is clear and concise and creative. However, once brand voice strategy, values-based marketing, and overt vulnerability started tipping the scale, people then started using more authentic than thou techniques, sobbing on lives and being oh so authentic. Can't you see how authentic I am? And the trend shifted away because there were those of us who were like, ew, no, if that's what authentic is, I do not want to be authentic. And, similar to when TikTok started coming out and people were like, no, but I don't want to dance. There are ways to show up that are true, but everything got authenticity washed, if you like. So because of that, there was kind of a reaction to the authenticity online thing. And people were like, no, we're going to do relationship marketing. Relationship marketing is the way. We're going to build relationships. We're going to build real relationships. We're going to connect with people before talking about the sale. We're going to be really focused on creating not quite friendships, because I'm still going to ask you for your money, but somewhat of a relationship before saying, hey, I've got this thing, will you buy it? And again, nothing wrong with relationship building. I am 100% here for it. However, once people started sliding into your DMs with those templated chats, we all know those templated chats. Hey, Helen, are you still a coach? And you're like, yes, obviously I am. Like, why don't you just hit me with your pitch first, or go to my profile and then come up with something more sensible? But we got skeptical when somebody you didn't know slid into your DMs. You're like, when are they going to pitch me? And now we know that relationship marketing isn't really working. So we shifted. We were like, I'm not going to slide into people's DMs because they're going to think that I'm some sort of sleazy such and such, and I'm not. So instead, people were like, no, 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 I'm not that. I'm an ethical business. So I don't know about you. There was so much of this. There was so much of this, especially about 4 years ago. People were doing like land recognitions, values pages, all of these things. It was, and again, really great. Come back to your values, consider your impact, make pledges to do better. Absolutely. Like if we can be better people today than we were yesterday, yes, I'm 100% here for it. But when those land recognitions, when those values pages became lip service, they became untrustworthy. And so then we see somebody says they're an ethical business, and we don't know what that means. Not to mention, we also don't know by whose ethics, because you've been around in the world as have I, and there are some people with some very different ethics to me. So, ethical business, by whose judgment? So again, there was this pullback from that. No, okay, I'm not an ethical business because that doesn't feel quite right to me. I'm a sustainable business. And with sustainable businesses, so came not just the lip service, but we needed to see proof of your goodness. We needed to see that you were thinking beyond your revenue. We needed to see that you were doing more, that you were being better. But with the sustainable business model, you were always pretending that you were never actually hustling. You were never actually trying to get another sale, because so with sustainable businesses, we just need to take the hustle free off. And I really just want us to be real about how sometimes we have to hustle, and business changes, and it changes really quickly. So I've said this all the way along. I want to make it very, very clear. There's nothing innately wrong with any of these models, except that they become abused and manipulated into these formulaic profit machines. All you have to do is this, and this, and then you are an ethical business, or this, and this, and then you are a sustainable business. This, and this, and then you've got 8 figures sitting in your bank, and you're not paying out, 7.5 figures to your affiliates. No, absolutely not. Yeah, you actually have to do more work than 4 hours a week. Okay, so the 4-hour work week, like let's talk about that just for a moment. What shady bypassing that is. Oh, all you have to do is farm out everything to somebody that you only have to pay tiny amounts of money to is so unethical. And then to use that as fodder for building ethical relationships, I just think is so very, very problematic. And a lot of people got sucked into it. And that because it's pithy, because we want it. We don't want to be working so freaking hard all of the time. That was not the deal that we signed up for, right? So, I mean, let's be real. We do have to work, and we don't really want to have to work, period. Hence anti-capitalism. But that's not this. This is what is the alternative. And I'm going to say right now that the alternative is regenerative business design. But I just threw down some words right there and didn't even tell you that I was going to. What is regenerative business, Helen? What is regenerative business? Well, in this new language, regenerative business, it pulls from permaculture, which also pulls from a lot of indigenous perspectives. Regenerative business is the act of designing and operating a business that generates profit, and this is key, in multiple forms, with benefit within and beyond the walls of the organization. Do you remember I was talking about business ecosystems? Let's think about that for just one quick moment. Profit in multiple forms. What other ways does profit show up in your life beyond money? Because money, yes, absolutely. My mortgage broker does not take baked bread in exchange for this house, although that would be excellent, mostly because my partner makes the bread and it's good. And I wouldn't have to. So profit in multiple forms, right? Time. We are a time deficit society. Seeing our community thrive, health and well-being, these are all ways that we profit with benefit within and beyond the walls of the organization. So yes, to the founders, yes, absolutely. Profit in multiple forms for us, but also our families and also our clients and also our clients' families and also our communities and their communities, thinking about these ripple effects. And in that ripple, that is your ecosystem. That is your business ecosystem. And the best thing about regenerative business design is that every ecosystem is different. And so it only works when it's completely customized. It only works when it's completely customized for you. So there's none of this, well, I followed the steps and it didn't work, and so therefore I failed, victim shaming stuff. There's none of that, because we take into consideration all of the factors, or as many as we can. Are you neurospicy in any particular way? Do you have like health or mobility requirements? Do you have, are you part of the sandwich generation where you are taking care of aging parents, but also kids that you've got to shepherd from that extracurricular thing to the other one? So these are real factors in place as a business owner. You aren't just like going off and doing Mai Tai and then farming out the rest of your admin. That was a reference to the 4-Hour Workweek book. I don't know if anybody got that, but that's what that was. So I'm going to just pause for a moment and see if we have language agreement on that, because we're going to move on very shortly. So yes, language agreement. Right. Amelia, because I don't know what I'm doing. Right. I can relate to the journey of wanting to follow templates because I don't know what I'm doing, and that must be the way. And permission to do things according to my values, skills, joys, intuition has been the next and most rewarding part of the business journey. Yes, 100%, right? 100%. It is the most rewarding. And it's really fucking scary because we don't have models of possibility. We have models of possibility for working in the factory. We have models of possibility for working in the office. But we don't have models. We even have models of possibility for like making and running a successful business. But we don't have models of possibility for the businesses that we want to run that conform. I don't love that word conform, but really to mold to the things that we need in our lives. If you've got 3 kids under 3 at home, there is no way that you are going to be doing like IG lives 3 times a day. You're just not. You're just not. So we need to think outside of that marketing box. We need to think outside of that services box that we were driven to say, okay, well, let's follow this template. So yes, the permission is amazing. It's so freeing and also very scary. Yeah, perhaps yield to our lives, or maybe just incorporate it, right? Like that, those things, the business doesn't need to yield and we don't need to yield, but we can remain in balance. I love the word balance. Are any of you old enough to remember pogo balls? Not the sticks, but the ball. Yeah, pogo balls. Okay, they look like a little Saturn. So if you were ever on a pogo ball, then you know that balance isn't just standing there and being fine. You know that balance is always these, like, yeah, you can still sing the jingle. I love that. Balance is always a jiggle, like not a jingle, a jiggle, like where you're a little bit this way, a little bit that way. So let's keep in mind that that is what balance is. It is always considering the checks as well. So yes, okay, with the new language, I want to speak a little bit about regenerative business design as a whole. I love a good framework. I love a good methodology. I think that it is that antithesis to the formula because it's not rigid, but it allows us to apply our ideas in ways that make sense for us. So we're not just trying to fill in blanks, we're taking concepts and applying them to our lives with our given knowledge. So this is the way that I have built this out. I'm sure there are other people out there who talk about regenerative businesses who have different ways of doing so. And for the record, I feel pretty confident that regenerative businesses is going to become a trend at some point as well. But hey, we're ahead of the times. So remember I spoke about that ripple, thinking about your business ecosystem. That ripple is a little bit further away. It's that impact that you want to have on your business, how your community is impacted, how your client's community is impacted. Before you can do that, though, you need to make sure that your business is resilient, that you aren't bottlenecking everything, that if you make a mistake because you're human and you do it online because we're always online these days, that your organization has the opportunity to learn and recover and repair. I want to be very clear that within resilience, there must be repair, period. So before resilient, though, before you can start thinking about, am I the bottleneck here? Or like, how would I recover from this hypothetical situation? There are your roots. So this business ecosystem, there are your roots right at the very, very center. And within that, we have 5 things. And these are the things that are often talked about in online businesses. However, they talk about them from this ripple effect here. They talk about them in like, you want to create an impact, then you need to be thinking about this. What I'm going to say to you now is that this comes in stages. And if you are at a place where you have grown enough, you can count on your team, you can step away for a few weeks because something happened and then come back, then let's talk about the ripple effect. Let's talk about like doing a buy one, give one. Let's talk about creating that foundation. Let's talk about like how you're going to give back to the community. Absolutely. But in the meantime, I think the vast majority of people are still in a place where they need to be considering their methodology, how they get their people from here to there, their magnet, who those people actually are, the marketing, how they're convincing those people through the doors. And I do mean so in a relationship, not, sucky, icky kind of way. The model, like how are you actually serving those people and your money? Are you being a good steward with it? But today we're going to talk about your model. And this is something I just find so very, very rich. Your business model, oftentimes, it isn't necessarily your ideal client that is the problem. It isn't necessarily your methodology or your lack of that's the problem. It's the way that you set up your business. And there's so much richness in all of this. But I think that the business model is just the most exciting thing ever. Okay. I'm going to take a sip because what's exactly required of me is more talking. So hold tight. Incidentally, I love this mug. It is like so dainty and giant. It's got this lovely little like granny style design on it. And yet it's mega. It's like, oh, I love it. Anyway. Okay. So what exactly is required of me? Welcome to the interactive part. As I said, this is interactive. I'm so glad that you're still with me. I'm hoping that you're still with me. Thank you. It is the perfect mug combo. Yes, I've got a couple of nods. Yes, still with me. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn the tables a little bit, and I'm going to offer you some opportunities to free write on some questions that I will answer. I would love to hear from you in the chat. If you have questions, you can always ping me while we're on a timer. For those who are watching the recording, the way this is going to work is I'm going to pull up the slide. I'm going to set a timer. We're going to be quiet for a couple of minutes. Because it's the recording, you can advance or you can pause. You can do, or you can play it and do the couple of minutes. If you are watching the recording, you can set this timer for as long as you like. The reason why we're going to do a couple of minutes is because we only have a certain amount of time here today together. And also that constraint, it makes us write stuff down. We're like, I got to find an answer. And that stops us from being super critical about our answers. So that's the other piece of this, is that you do not have to share it. So this does not have to be grammatically correct. This does not have to be perfect. It just play along and see. And with that, let's talk about success. Most of you don't have your cameras on, so I can't see you squishing up your nose and being all like, ooh, success. Why are we talking about success? Oh my goodness, Shauna Ray, that was hilarious. Yeah, so it is, yes, do not critique yourself. Let's talk about success. How do you define success? Now, this piece here, how do you define success? I really want you to think about a couple of things here. What have you been taught success is? And how would you define it differently? So if you have a pen and paper, good on you. I appreciate that. I always have a pen at the ready as well. If you're going to do the typey, now is the time that you pull up your document and do so. I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes, and you're going to answer the question, how do you define success? There is no way to do this wrong at all, except for not doing it. I would say that's wrong. So how do you define success? Dive into it. If at any time you find any of these questions triggering, please care for yourself. Please check in with your bodies. Please hold the space and sacredness that you need in order to manage. So there you go. 2 minutes. How do you define success? Let's go. Okay, so that was 2 minutes. It's really quick, hey? Did you get something down? Did you get something down that feels true? Yes? No? Here you go. Get a little nod, little thumbs up. Yeah. Okay, so we're just diving in. We're not expecting perfection from ourselves, ever, right? Not ever. So, you know, allow this to just settle in. How do you define success? And as you go forward with your days, keep that in your pocket to see, because these things are really insidious. They get so sneaky inside our brains, and where we start comparing ourselves, or we start feeling like we're not adding up, or and those are indicators of how we've defined success and how we're actually living our lives, which is what I want to lead you to next, is what would success look like in your life? So if today, by all means, you were successful, what would that actually look like? What would that look like in your life? So, again, if you're sandwich generation, maybe that looks like, more time for your parents, or maybe that looks like, external care. There's all sorts of options here of what success would look like for your life. So we're going to do another 2 minutes. And if you need me, ping me in the chat. I'm here the whole time. Okay. Curious if you found any disconnects between how you define success and what it would look like in your life. There was a big nod there from Jenna. Jenna, do you want to share just briefly?
Yes. So, like, some of how I define success is having money and resources to live well and provide to my family without scrambling now and into the future. And what success looked like in my life was that money was not a concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a certain trueness to both of those things, right? That at one of the only ways outside of this capitalist system is to buy your way out. So there is a trueness to the fact that a certain amount of money does buy happiness. It does, like, because it buys the dentist and the the glasses and the food and all of that, right? And there is also a point when we're talking about success beyond that, what we would bring into our lives is often not about money at all.
Yeah, like I also had working hours when I wanted, which wouldn't be about money. That would, like, success would be able to be like, oh, wake up and be like, I'm off today, or today I'm going to do what I want to do, which is go do this thing, like having that control.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is, you're not obliged to anybody, because if you did have to check in, it's usually because you're obliged to a deadline or a client meeting or something along those lines. And without those obligations, then you have that time freedom to stretch, slow morning, move into your day. And that's a really beautiful thing. And what's incredible about it is that there are business models that can work with that. And so this is where regenerative business design comes in. You're like, okay, so if this is something that feels really important, then what? I'm still getting up with an alarm because I have a school bus to catch. So having a pretty hard start in the morning isn't that big of a deal, because I'm already up and making a lunch and like heading down the driveway and all of that. So for me, in this life currently, a slow morning doesn't really matter as much. The beasts still need to be fed. The chickens still need to come out. And for others, that slow morning means that they're able to thrive more. And so that's something that we need to be considering. This is why I'm asking about success, because then we can start defining what makes most sense for you. So this is a question I love, and I know it seems so broad, but how will you know? How will you know that you're successful? What are the markers that will say, hey, I am successful. Amanda is successful. Katie is successful. This is how I will know. And all of our markers are going to be different. And most of us probably are going to say, oh, okay, well, I'll have this much money in my bank account. Beyond that, how will you know? Because a lot of us will push the marker further forward. They will say, oh, I'll do this. And that will feel like an accomplishment. That will feel like the success. And then when we get there, you know what we do to ourselves? We move the marker. Maybe I can get 5 more people in my program. Instead of recognizing that we did that was successful. So I'm going to give you just 1 minute here. Check in with your body. How will you know that you are successful? Okay. How will you know that you're successful? Sometimes that means, there are quantifiable ways that are like, okay, if I had this much in my account, that would be successful. If I had, paid off my mortgage, that would be successful. If, there's a government loan to green your house that we're looking at, like if we paid that off, that would be successful. And those are quantifiable, but also that slow morning, the managing to get to yoga twice a week when you've only ever been able to rush out the door and maybe get to one, those are other markers of success that when we can integrate those into our bodies, we're much more likely. Oh, good. I'm really, really, really glad that yours were more about how you feel. I am a bit nervous about pronouncing your name incorrectly, and I'm going to try Amelia. Is that correct? And if it's not, please tell me.
Amy Leah.
Amelia. It is Amelia.
It's Amy Leah.
Yeah. Amy Leah. Thank
Got it.
you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Names are so powerful, and it's really important that we give them the respect that they deserve. So yours were more about how you felt. Can you speak a bit more about that? Would you like to?
Sure. Yeah. I said, I have an inner sense of calm, peace, and contentment 80% of the time. And I'm more trusting, not wasting energy on worrying. So that's, for me, that's success.
That's really neat. I like that you kind of juxtapose the, like, I'm not worrying so much, that I'm not wasting time on the worrying. And so then somatically, and please don't do this now, because this is just for your pocket for later. I would be really curious as to, like, how not worrying shows up. What does that feel like? How does that manifest in you? And then the next time it happens, try to notice, and then just put that in your pocket. Oh, notice that. Oh, notice that. That was not worrying. And then if it happens again, like, notice that. Okay, that was not worrying. And Amanda, if your response was similar, I love that so much. And I also really love that this is the case, right? Like, oftentimes it's more than money. This is the thrivelihood, right? So what does not worrying feel like?
Can I say something else there?
Please.
That I actually have a tremendous amount of trust and in my life, and I worry that I'm not worrying because people around me are worrying, and I'm like, shouldn't I be worrying?
I think that makes you very freaking lucky. Like, you're like, way to go with your nervous system. Like, really, way to go with your nervous system. Of course, we can explore what that, like, whether that's a connected thing or a disconnected thing, because there's a couple of routes that we could go. But ultimately, sometimes the worrying is completely unnecessary. And if your nervous system is already like, nah, I don't need to do that, then great. And if it's like, no, I put that to the side, then might be worth exploring. Yes, Shauna, or Shauna Ray. Do you prefer Shauna Ray? Okay, you're muted. Oh, still muted. Yeah.
Shauna's my first name.
Thank you.
Ray is my last name. So thank you
Great.
for recognizing that and asking. I think I realized that I already feel successful in every area but money. And, all of the things that are important to me for success, if I were to look at that in other people and other women in particularly that I admire, so many of them here, the impact that they have had is amazing. And I feel the same about myself. And the only thing that I worry about that is inconsistent with my values is the capitalist having to pay bills, having to worry. I do have the worry.
Yeah.
I do have that worry, like a monkey on my back, wondering when the next client is going to show up, or how much marketing of myself I'm going to have to do, and how low am I going to have to go in that category, like putting myself out there.
These are the real reals for sure. And
Yeah.
thank you for being transparent with that, because we live in a society where we're driven to hyper independence, and that we're not and like the online business model also fuels this, that we curate all of the beautiful days and we hide all the mess and sweep it under the rug. And the truth is that the money can be really hard to come by sometimes. And you're doing all the things, you're checking all the boxes, and that is, yeah, we can make it look so good for others. And that can be really quite difficult. I love the bothness of that. Like, I feel really successful in all of these ways. And then there's the money. And I could do a whole other thing about money and money perspective. I won't, because I only have a certain amount of time with you today. But if you want to drop a DM, we can go further. And also, speaking about like living rurally as an anti-capitalist, that is a whole other thing as well. That is a whole other thing. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to keep going because I really respect and care for your time, and I want to get through these. Let me move forward. Okay, so we're still talking about the interactive stuff, but I want to shift away from success and talk about capacity. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Actually, all of this stuff is kind of my favorite things to talk about. But your actual capacity. So a lot of us are like, oh, okay, well, now I'm a business owner and I'm going to just like, so we cannot work 40 billable hours a week the way that we would if we were employed by someone. However, oftentimes when we become a business owner, and even later in years of being a business owner, we're still trying to replicate that 40 billable hours a week. That's not the way that it works. And we price accordingly for that 40 billable hours, not including the fact that we're also paying for marketing team, we're paying for our sales team, we're paying for the hydro, we're paying for the roof over our heads. Like, there's all of these things that we're paying for inside that hourly rate, plus the fact that we can't do 40 billable hours. And on top of that, a lot of people become entrepreneurs because we have additional responsibilities. We have additional responsibilities outside of what would be a 9-to-5 would allow. So given that, that means that our actual capacity is often not what our mental capacity is. It's not like, I don't know about you, but I am really, really good at writing a to-do list that is longer than my forearm and expecting myself to get it done that day, which is very not nice to myself. And I think it's also very common. Yes, very common. So actual capacity, this is really, really important for us to consider when we're like, okay, so how am I going to design my business so that it works well with me? So we're going to go just for a minute this time, because this is a question that I know you could take 5-10 minutes writing it all down. So let's look at the big umbrellas, right? Amanda, we can talk about like what is a task, what is a project, and what is an epic at some point, because launch new offer is usually an epic, but we consider it a task. So we're going to go for just 1 minute here. What are your current responsibilities? Umbrella these things. Do you have kids? Put that down. Do you have do you have to walk the dog every day? Twice a day? Put that down. What are your current responsibilities? We already know running a business is one. Put that down. Because under these responsibilities, we know there are lots of tasks. There are probably lots of projects. We're going to do 1 minute. What are your current responsibilities? Write as many as you can in the next 60 seconds. Shauna, I can see you're very good at timing. You always put your head up right before my alarm goes off. It's like, yeah, like, well done. Okay, I know that you can go for longer with what your current responsibilities are. I also know that this can drag us into a rabbit hole of overwhelm, which is why I keep it really tight and short. Please do continue with this exercise in ways that are resourcing for you. So making sure that when you're doing this work, you're also making sure that your body is taken care of, that you're noticing like the beautiful greens or the beautiful reds around you, really just allowing yourself to internally and externally experience the bothness. So again, we're gonna do just a minute here. I wish I could spend all afternoon with you. These questions are so big, but ultimately my task here today is to start sparking ideas so that you can then explore them further. So which parts of your schedule are already fixed? For example, I know that Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'm taking my kid to karate, which means that at least 2 of those days I'm picking them up from school, which means that I am not working after 2:30 on those days. That's fixed for me. Could I get my partner to do it? Probably, in that, but it's my job and I like it. So those things are fixed for me, and you may have a day job that's fixed for you. This is included in your responsibilities, and it's also included in your actual capacity. So if you have a lot of pieces in your schedule that are already fixed, then maybe just pick a day or two and then do this work later. Alternatively, if you can kind of umbrella these, let's go for a minute. Okay, we're going through these so fast. So I said I could get my partner to do that, but I like it. And I think that's really important to consider, that if you like it, if it gives you joy, then, like, you can keep that shit unless it's so overwhelming and you're just attached to it. What can be delegated in your life? What can be shifted? What can be combined, AKA your email or your marketing endeavors? Those can be combined and batched out. What can be delegated, shifted, or combined to make things more manageable for you, to free up some time, to free up some creative space? What can be delegated? We're going again for a minute. Keep going here. Okay. So take a really quick look over your answers here. We're talking about your actual capacity, and we've done so very, very quickly. This is work that we do in the Motorcycle Club, which is my community is the Love and Badassery Motorcycle Club. And we talk about this stuff for hours at a time, over and over again. These are not small things, and these are not answers that you will get perfectly immediately. Sometimes we need to percolate on them, and sometimes life changes, and so we need to adapt and be agile. But for now, given this moment, based on the answers that you have provided yourself, what do you actually have time for? And so maybe that looks like, oh, hey, I've got like 4 hours on Thursday afternoon that I haven't been doing. So like, maybe let's look at that. Oh, I realize that I've been trying to do way more on Mondays than I can. So let's give ourselves a minute. Jenna has put the feedback link in the chat as well for after, because I know that we're coming to the end of our time and I would love to spend more with you. But let's do this first, and then we will circle back to that. Here we go. 1 more minute. What do you have time for? And if you find that you have a lot of unfixed time, let's play with that as well, because this is what that regenerative business design is all about. Okay. And how can you tweak your services so they're closer to what you have capacity for? Again, a big question, Helen. You just expect me to answer that so fast? No. But now that I've said it, you can't unhear it. How can you tweak your services so they're closer to what you have capacity for? Maybe that group program actually becomes something that's a little more asynchronous. Or maybe that asynchronous offer becomes something that is more defined. Maybe you add VIP days because you have a big chunk available. So how can you tweak your services so they're closer to what you have capacity for? This is a question I would like you to hold on to and explore as you go forward. How can this be massaged or tweaked or introduced or gotten rid of in order to match more of what you have capacity for? And in doing so, what you're also doing is you're giving yourself less worry, less hustle, less stress from here to there. And I don't know your life. So I can't say that I'm going to guarantee you a certain number of free minutes every day. I don't know. But I do know that once we start acting intentionally and being really creatively intentionally with our time and with our energy, we free up a lot more for ourselves. So in this, and I believe these are the last 2 questions. So because we're short on time, I want us to combine these. Notice what feels good, what feels exciting, what feels kind of nervous. Where there's emotion, there's information. Let's say that again. Where there is emotion, there's information. So Notice what's making you feel like, oh, I don't really know. There's information there. Notice what feels exciting. There's information there. And that's the stuff you can put in the feedback form too. And then as you do that, what can you do to increase your capacity for more joy? Often these can be small things. They can be 10 minutes in the morning where you put your feet up the wall. I actually do that in the afternoon. It's 10 minutes, feet up the wall, and just lie on the floor. It is a beautiful thing. 20 minutes of weeding in the garden. Lots of things. What can you do to increase your capacity for more joy? So as you go forward, I want you to consider a few things. That regenerative business design is getting clear on your version of success, not someone else's. It is building your personal and professional capacity so that it makes sense for you in your life, with your brain, your body, and your situation. It's creating systems for future care, because caring for yourself, your elder self, is also self-care. Allowing profit to include well-being, that it's not just about the money, it's also about the money, and it's not just about the money, both, right? And it's about trusting your ecosystem, regardless of what somebody else says. And I get that that's hard. And here's the bad news. It is. There isn't a quick fix. This isn't a formula. And I know that was the point, but that's also the bad news. The good news is that there's a trick, and I've been alluding to it throughout. If you make decisions somatically, you create alignment in your body, with your body and your brain. And alignment makes it way easier to build regenerative systems, because you know what is true for you. So the first way you do this is you orient your space outside your body. Here I am in this chair. I can feel the chair on the floor. It's a little bit squeaky. Here I am in this room. Explore what's happening inside my body that needs to be seen. And then align. What are my ideas and how do those feel? So from there, first doing that, the second thing we do is strategize and plan. And we're so quick to going to strategy and plan that we skip over all of the first bit. We skip over all of the intentionality of, how does this feel? Is this right for me? Side note, scared isn't a reason. Scared isn't a reason. That is not, it doesn't mean it's not aligned. It means it's new. It means it might be hard, but it doesn't mean a no necessarily. So orient, explore, align, then strategize and plan. Then strategize and plan. Because a regenerative business asks you to build a life that makes sense for you, not necessarily for me, but for you. And I want to remind you that you're worth more than just sustenance. You're worth more than your labor. You're the guide. You're the leader. You have the solution to what will work best for you, your capacity, your unique life, and your business. All you need sometimes is someone to ask the right questions or offer their opinion. I don't want you to settle for sustainable. That's it. So here are a few places you can find me. I am Helen Tremethick everywhere. It is the blessing and curse of being the only one. Do not go down a Google rabbit hole of my past. It is embarrassing. Thank you. I am on Instagram at Helen Tremethick. Please feel free to follow me. I'm there in stories mostly. I'm also on LinkedIn, Helen Tremethick, and there's a little gifty gift that if you are looking for what do I need to focus on first, second, third, remember I talked about, do I need to do internal work or external work? Do I need to be like, what does growth look like? The Beyond Sustainability Blueprint can help you figure out what's next for you. It does also just transparently add you to my email list. So if that is something you don't want, please feel free to get the gift and then unsubscribe. I would love it if you stuck around, but you don't have to. And then lastly, if you would like to hop on a no pitch chat to discuss what your success looks like, Jenna said you can DM me because we're all in circle together. You can, or you can click this link that I do not have. Here, I'll just do this, that I do not have handy. I usually have it handy so I can pop it, but it's Tidy Cal, Helen Tremethick / Cuppa. You already know what my teacup looks like. I'm looking forward to seeing what yours looks like. I see Jenna is grabbing that link for you. So yeah, you can hop on. We can introduce each other if you want to talk about like what this could all look like for you. And we can discuss that. And if you want to know the other services I offer, you'll have to ask. Okay. All right. I'm available for a few more minutes. I know we're at time and you probably have to run. If you do, please go ahead. Thank you so much for being here with me. And if you don't have to run, I'm available for questions, comments, anything like that. I will stop talking now. Thank you.
Helen, thank you so much. Normally, well, not normally, but sometimes during these presentations, I like go and write some notes so that I can say something at the end, but I was too busy answering all of these questions because they were so fantastic. I cannot wait for this recording to come out so I can go through and do them again and also use these links you provided to get in touch with you. You know, it's been such a powerful 90 minutes of being with you. And I can't thank you enough for coming here and sharing this today.